Welcome back to 6 Degrees of Ukraine, where we cut through the spin, follow the money, and lay out the full story so you get the facts, not just propaganda. Today, in part 3 of our deep dive on Volodymyr Zelenskyy, we're looking at the tightrope walk between his global image and the reality he faces at home. It's a story of two Zelenskys, the international hero and the struggling politician, and the growing gap between them. The West poster boy, manufactured myth-making. From the moment Russian tanks crossed the border, Zelenskyy wasn't just a president. He became a brand. The fatigues, the helmet, the defiant speeches to Western parliaments. This wasn't just spontaneous leadership, it was production. Behind the scenes, you had PR operators like Andriy Yermak, not just Zelenskyy's chief of staff, but his narrative architect. Add in Western media hungry for a clear-cut hero, and suddenly you've got a made-for-Netflix icon. The global press turned him into a modern Churchill, a symbol of democracy under siege. That image worked. Billions in aid flowed in. Celebrity endorsements stacked up, and Zelenskyy became the face of resistance. But at home, that's where the cracks started showing. The cracks at home, corruption and resentment. Inside Ukraine, the reality of war is far messier than the Western headlines suggest. Corruption, the rot that predates Zelenskyy, didn't vanish with invasion. In fact, new wartime contracts and the flood of foreign aid opened fresh opportunities for graft. Military morale suffered, undersupplied troops, accusation of favoritism in conscription, and profiteering within logistic networks. Meanwhile, Yermak's grip tightened, controlling access to aid and foreign contacts. The inner circle grew richer while frontline fighters paid the price. Public frustration built. By 2024, domestic approval of Zelenskyy had taken a hit. Because in war, symbols don't feed families, and propaganda doesn't patch holes in body armor. Western fatigue and the begging bowl. On the world stage, Zelenskyy's halo had slipped too. By 2024 and into 2025, Western leaders, especially in the US, started asking tough questions about the endless aid pipeline. Support fractured, political infighting slowed new packages, and voters grew skeptical of the blank check. Zelenskyy's once inspiring appeals started to sound repetitive, even desperate. And every funding delay or reduction back home reinforced the sense that Ukraine's survival was tied to the patience of foreign government. Not exactly the sovereign strength narrative Ukrainians were promised. Where did that money go? Some to weapons, some to reconstruction, and inevitably some straight into pockets. The corruption story haunted every press conference, whether Zelenskyy admitted it or not. Silencing critics, consolidating power. Internally, Zelenskyy's grip on power tightened. Wartime emergencies powers allowed him to suspend opposition parties, silencing critical media, and sideline even military officials who dared question his strategy, all under the banner of national security. This isn't unique to Ukraine. Plenty of leaders have used war to justify crackdowns. But the gap between the global hero narrative and the authoritarian drift at home keep growing. Journalists disappeared from press pools. Investigative outlets found themselves restructured. The message was clear. In Zelenskyy's Ukraine, loyalty was mandatory, even for those asking uncomfortable questions. The two Zelenskys, image versus reality. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Zelenskyy is both a symbol and a man. He's the defiant leader who stayed when others fled, but also the opportunist who understood how to sell that moment to the world. He's the man who rallied the people and the politician who built a patronage network behind the scenes. Both things can be true, and they are. That's why understanding Zelenskyy requires more than just slogans or memes. He's not the villain Russian propaganda claims, but he's no saint either. He's a wartime president in a country that has never fully escaped its oligarch shadow. And when the cameras turn off, he's left balancing global expectations, domestic survival, and his own legacy, all on a knife's edge. This is what propaganda doesn't show you, the full ledger. In war, truth is always the first casualty. In part 4, we'll look ahead. What does life after war mean for Zelenskyy? Does Ukraine even want him in that future? And does Zelenskyy himself have a plan beyond survival? Old Guardian will be here to follow the trail. Spin free, fact first, always. Subscribe, share, and keep your eyes open. The story isn't over. It's just getting real.